John Mulaney, the comedian, made a children's TV special and released it at Christmas, this past Christmas. It's on Netflix. You should watch it. It's more than a little surreal, like most of the children's television was in the 70s, I'm told. And it plays like one of those too, but it's more self-aware. It's also oddly poignant. Features a series of interviews with the child actors, where he asks the kids what their greatest fear is. And the kids are pretty honest. And you get everything from the various horror movies of Jordan Peele, to losing my family and friends, to drowning, to being killed by a killer clown. And then you're reminded that it's scary to be a kid. Kids are scared of a lot. Just something you sort of instinctively know when you are a kid, and then forget as you grow older. It's a scary world for everyone, but for kids it can be particularly frightening in a way that we as older, larger people frequently forget. The primal fear of not understanding so much about the world, and then also being very aware of your own powerlessness in the face of so much, and your dependency on others, is a potent cocktail that makes for a lot of anxiety when you're a kid. But gradually, of course, a lot of us age out of that, and we paper over that innate sense of powerlessness with our knowledge, the things we learn, and the lives that we build out of elaborate systems of things we can control. But inside of each one of us, I think, there remains a gnawing sense that in the end, we are tiny, fragile humans in the middle of a big and scary world. This pandemic, for a lot of us, has brought that innate feeling back. Because after all of a sudden, the entire world, as civilized and as advanced and as technological as we knew that we were, is suddenly fighting an enemy that we cannot see, and we cannot measure, and we cannot cajole, and we cannot buy off. We can't do a whole lot right now, except sit still. We can only avoid the virus and hope for the best and wait it out. And for once, this carefully constructed world of knowledge and things we can control doesn't seem to be able to offer much protection against a microbe as civilized and as progressive and as smart as we thought we were. We are, again, tiny, fragile humans in the middle of a big, scary world who can't control very much. And that is scary. Good Friday, when we mark the death of Jesus on the cross, is a day when the church stares squarely into the face of that big and scary world, that world that we cannot control. It is a day when we remember that God chose to become human. And when God did that, God didn't flinch from the worst parts of our human experience. That God incarnate experienced what it was to feel fragile and alone and abandoned and killed unjustly. On this day, we remember that the creator of the universe became like us for a moment in time, small and scared and seemingly powerless against the forces of evil and death. When we remember Christ punished on the cross, punished by a cruel empire, Christ felt the full brunt of humanity. He felt what it was to be a small, lone human in a big, scary world. And he felt afraid, and he died. But at the same time, we call this day good because we also know that on this day, death didn't win. Evil didn't have the final word. 3 days later, Jesus rose from the grave, even though he absolutely certainly died. Even more certainly did God raise him from the dead. This big, scary, cruel world that seems so overpowering actually was proven entirely powerless, toothless, weak against the almighty love of God. So on this day, when the church stares full into the face, full into all the forces of this big and scary world against which we cannot possibly stand, we have the courage and the strength to do that because on this day we know that God is more powerful than this big and scary world. On this day, we do that because we know that Jesus has already blazed a trail right through the heart of the forces of evil and death. And that even when we feel most alone, most powerless, and most vulnerable, there is nothing in this big and scary world that can truly harm us. Because God has already defeated forever anything that could possibly come for us. All the worst is over. God has won. God's love has won. And our small, fragile human selves are safe, wrapped in God's arms. And from this day, we need never fear the power of evil and death ever again. Amen.